Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. In today's video we are gonna have the third dupe I could find on the market for the Huda Beauty Desert Dusk palette. Today's palette is called Ucanbe Twilight and Dusk. The Twilight and Dusk palette looks like this. It really much reminds me of the coverage of the Desert Dusk palette, especially because they both have a matte finish with a subtle sheen to it that makes it appear not completely dark on the screen. The reason for that on the original palette was that they wanted her eyeshadow and her headpiece to stand out more, and obviously the dupe palette was trying to copy that. The Huda Beauty Desert Dusk palette has 12 months shelf life, was made in Italy and contains 25.2 grams of product in total and has 18 shades in the palette. The Twilight and Dusk palette was made in the People's Republic of China, has 18 grams of product throughout 18 shades, which makes it 1 gram per pen, and has also 12 months shelf life, just like the Desert Dusk palette does. I'm going to now insert some swatches for you to show you how these shades compare to each other. On the bottom, as always, we are swatching the original eyeshadow palette, and on the top, the correlating shades from the dupe palette. I had a really easy job to swatch all of the correlating shades because every single shade is in the same pan and is called the same name in the dupe palette. I don't know legally how they managed to do that, but I think that makes everyone's job very easy when we want to follow a tutorial that is normally made based on the original palette, and now you can just take your dupe and without any hard work you can just find which shade is called the name they mentioned, which pen they're pointing at, and you can just follow the tutorial very easily. So as you could tell from the swatches, they appear to be exactly the same shades, or at least very similar. Some of the shades are more similar than others. I'm gonna give you a couple of examples. So I'm gonna be live swatching a couple of the shades for you. The first shade I want to show you is one that I used for this makeup look, and I was very happy with how it performed in the dupe palette, and that is going to be the shade Angelic, which is, I would say, is the shade of NARS Orgasm. If you know what that means, is basically a pink shade with a gold hue to it. So I'm gonna just swatch here first the Huda Beauty one. As you could probably tell, it's really chalky, even though it's a shimmery shade, and well, it's just not really shiny. At least it's not as shiny as you would want it to be, especially on the eye. It doesn't really look even as shiny as it does on the back of my hand, unfortunately. Now compared to this, let me show you the Ucanbe version. Immediately on the pan, it just feels so much smoother, and look how much more pigmented and metallic that is. Another shade I want to show you is the main reason I wanted this Desert Dusk palette so much, and the reason I'm so disappointed by what actually I got for my money. That is the shade Retrograde. So whilst Retrograde is a great idea, it's a brown shade with a purplish blue tone to it. The idea is absolutely gorgeous, but the shade you actually get in this palette is a patchy, not too shiny, not too anything color. In comparison, this is what you get in the Huda Beauty one. It's definitely less brown, it's more purple, but it's so much more pigmented. Don't get me wrong, it does lose that interesting twist to it, that it's a brown shade but it's also blue shade. so it does completely lose that, unfortunately, but at least it's a shade you can actually use. The original retrograde shade, I honestly would have no idea what to do with it because it's just not really good for anything. I don't know why Huda keeps pushing these glitter and topper shades. No one is interested, like literally no one. One of the best performing and most creamy shade in the Huda Beauty palette is called Turkish Delight, and it's a beautiful shiny cranberry shade. It looks like this. Now this texture is called a pressed pearl, and I love this. I wish she did all of her stupid topper shades as a pressed pearl instead. This shade performs really well in the Ucanbe palette as well, but as you can see, it's definitely a lot more cool toned and a lot less red. I actually used this shade on my eye makeup look today. It is on the outer corner of the cut crease, and as you can see on the original side, it looks a lot more red. This is the dupe side, and this one looks definitely a lot more purple. But obviously the dupe palette has some disadvantages as well. For example, one of the shades I used to create today's makeup look is the shade Amber, which looks like this in the original palette. As you can see, it's a bit of a subtle brick red shade, almost like a medium brown with some red tone in it. Whilst the Ucanbe version, sorry, I swatched a bit close to it, but as you can see, it's a lot lighter, it's a lot patchier, and it's just overall definitely not as good. So I think the dupe palette definitely performs a lot better as far as the shiny shimmery shades go, but the original one has a lot better matte shades, which are a lot more buildable with less fallout. They are just better matte shades in my opinion. Unfortunately, in the dupe palette again, what's missing is being able to build up those shades. So in the original one, you get a dark shade, you build, you blend a bit, you build more, and it actually gets darker. Nothing like that is possible with the dupe palette. It just keeps flicking off the pigment when you're trying to apply more and more, and basically you are just gonna be covered in that shade everywhere, but it's not gonna have any depth to it. You are not able to have lighter and darker areas, unfortunately, but this is again not the first palette that happens to. Basically all of these dupe palettes have that same flow. Now I don't want to bubble for too long, so I'm just gonna jump right into this makeup look. I think the look itself turned out gorgeous. I actually prefer the Ucanbe side today, but I think they look very similar, and the dupe palette retails around £6 to £8, whilst the original one is 56. So just like most of the times, I feel like again the price point of the high-end palette is not justified, but it's up to you to decide which one you want to pick up. Sometimes you can get good deals. For example, Huda Beauty had about 40% off, I believe, of both the Desert Dusk and the Rose Gold palettes, and they were selling them for £33 instead of 56, which is amazing. That price point is a lot better than £56. So sometimes if you're lucky, you can pick them up a lot more affordable than other times, but nevertheless, you have the option to spend only £8 and get the same makeup look. If I left the house like this today, no one could tell that I'm wearing two different eyeshadow palettes. Quite honestly, they look identical. If you really want to be nitpicky, yes, you can find some differences, such as the original one being a bit more red toned and the dupe one being a bit more cool toned, but honestly they are far too similar to justify why you're spending that £48 extra just to get the original one, but that's just my opinion. Once again, let's jump right into this tutorial. Let me show you how I created this eye makeup look, which shades I used, and then when we're finished, I'm gonna give you my final thoughts on these two palettes. Okay, so as always, I'm gonna be using the more expensive palette on this side of the face, which is today going to be the Huda Beauty Desert Dusk palette, and the more affordable palette on this side of the face, which is today going to be the Ucanbe Twilight and Dusk palette. I have already applied my Painterly paint pot, and now I'm going to go on and add some shadow shield. The last two times we used this palette, we were focusing on the burgundy and purple colors. So today I want to do something different to show you a little bit what else you could create using the palette. So we are gonna be using more of the pinky colors. Obviously we will still need to use some of the burgundies to darken that up, but the main colors we want to use on the lid today are going to be Turkish Delight and Angelic. To get started, I'm gonna take some of Eden and apply it to the crease. And we're using this shade not just to set the primer, but also to add a nice peachy base to the rest of the colors. Especially because after using Eden, we want to go back with the darker shade on the lid, and it's going to be much easier to blend that darker shade on top of this. Now, because the Huda Beauty palette is called Desert Dusk, and the Ucanbe palette is called Twilight and Dusk, I'm just gonna refer to this palette as Twilight to avoid any confusion, and because I don't want to use the full name every single time. So from the Twilight palette, I'm also taking the shade Eden, applying it to the crease and blending it a bit up and down, just to make sure everything is covered. The shade in the Ucanbe palette seems a bit lighter, and I feel like it's taking me a lot longer to build it up. I feel like there's less red and more pink in it than on this side. On this side, I definitely feel that it gives more depth to the look because it is darker. I'm pretty sure just looking at it, you can tell straight away this one looks a lot darker, more of a subtle corally shade, whilst the Twilight side, even though I'm trying to build it up, is not getting any darker than this. The next shade I'm going to take on a smaller brush, and the shade I'm taking is going to be Amber. We want to slowly start building up this darker shade on the crease. So I'm taking some of Amber, and because I have hooded eye, I apply it slightly above my lid because I want to enlarge that area, and because if I didn't try to enlarge that area, you actually couldn't see any of this cut crease once I open my eye. So as you can see, even though Amber looks like a reddish brick color due to the shades around it, once you apply it on the eye, it actually looks like a true medium brown color with just a hint of red in it. We definitely want to have something darker than this, but for now this is going to be a great base for the color. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to take an eye blender brush and slightly blend this out. Like I said before, on the Twilight side, all of the shades are called the same. So again, I'm going to take Amber and do the exact same thing as on the other side. I feel like this is one of the first times when my Ucanbe palette doesn't perform as well as the original, and I think the reason for that is because this is one of their older palettes, so they were probably still figuring things out. I definitely think that in the Ucanbe palette the shades are not as dark, it spreads out in a larger area, much larger than you want it to, because it sticks to the skin wherever you don't have any eyeshadow yet, but it's just not helping you if you wanna build it up on top of itself. As you can see, I'm trying to apply more where I already have this color, and instead of applying there, it just gets thicker and thicker and it just covers more and more. So I'm just gonna stop there, take the blending brush again and just blend it out, because this is not gonna get any better than this. As you can see, once I blended it out, it is definitely less pigmented than the other side is, and when you blend a good eyeshadow palette, it shouldn't all blend away, which is definitely true about the Huda Beauty palette. You can still see that the middle of it is darker than the edges, but the Twilight palette unfortunately did kind of blend away, which is not good. But we will have to move on, I'm afraid. So the next shade we are taking is going to be Saffron, and this is now obviously going to be your really dark burgundy color, so you want to be more careful with this one than before. We're also going to be doing more work with this shade because this is going to need to look perfect, whilst the previous shades were kind of just base colors. So that's the first layer of the shade Saffron. I'm gonna take the blending brush again and just nicely blend out the edges. And then I'm gonna go back a couple more times, apply a bit more, blend it a bit more until I'm happy with the results. Now I'm gonna move on to the Twilight side again and take some of the shade Saffron, and fingers crossed this is gonna work a little bit better than the previous shades did. Okay, so far it's applying nice on top of the previous shade. And it definitely seems a bit more buildable. I'm gonna go on with my blender brush now and try to blend this out. Let's see how much does it fade. Okay, with the first blending it did fade a lot, and also I have a lot of fallout, which I will obviously remove before we move on to the next step. Let's see if now I can go back with some more. Alright, well, I think that looks quite good. Not as good as the other side, especially on camera. In real life, I find them a lot more similar. Now, I'm gonna go off camera and I'm gonna cut the crease using some e.l.f. Camouflage Concealer. And then I'm gonna be back to apply the next color. Okay, so the cut crease is done to the best of my knowledge. Next I'm gonna take the shade Angelic, first on my finger and then on a brush, and I'm gonna apply it all over the cut crease. In the pan, this shade looks kind of shimmery, and it also seems to have some glitter in it. Now that I applied it on the lid, I don't see any glitter in it anymore, and quite honestly it hardly even looks shiny. So I am going to go back with another shade on top of it in a second, because I do want this to look a lot more shiny than it does right now. But before I do that, I'm going to apply the shade Angelic on the other side of the face as well. So that's going to be this one. I actually wonder if it looks more metallic in the Ucanbe palette, because this actually looks a bit duochrome to me here, and it doesn't seem to have any glitter in it. So that would be a big surprise actually if this one looks better than the original one does. Yes, 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 yes. I can tell you already that this one looks a lot better than the original one. this angelic shade looks absolutely gorgeous. It looks like a foiled eyeshadow. The Huda one doesn't look anything like this. I think the Ucanbe side is fine as it is. I'm not gonna do anything else on top of that angelic shade because it looks gorgeous. On the original side, however, I have two topper shades I could use. I have Celestial and Nefertiti, and I'm gonna go with Celestial. The reason being is because it looks much more similar to angelic. So I'm gonna take the shade Celestial, and I'm also going to add some Duraline to it because we need to make this look shiny. The shade Celestial is so powdery, and it also looks a lot lighter than the dupe. I'm gonna take some more of the shade Angelic and try to mix it in because I feel like without the shade Angelic this is gonna turn a lot lighter than the other side. Well, it already does anyway. I just take a little bit of the shade Blood Moon and try to mix it in with Angelic to make this side look a bit darker. Okay, now I'm gonna go back with Celestial again on top of this. Now they finally kind of look like the same color, and it definitely looks a lot more shiny now, which I'm very happy with. Now we obviously want to fix the dark shade because we messed up that line a little bit. So I'm gonna take a teeny tiny brush, dip it into the shade Saffron, and just try to outline the dark color again. And the other side looks almost completely perfect, but I'm just gonna work a bit on this as well. And one more shade we want to add to this look is called Turkish Delight, and this is gonna go to the outer V of this cut crease. I'm gonna take some of Turkish Delight on the Ucanbe side. Okay, that looks gorgeous as well. I could not tell the two shades apart. Okay, now I'm gonna take this off and I'm gonna go off camera again to clean up my inner corners. Now with the same smudger brush, I'm gonna take some of the shade Turkish Delight and add it to my under eye. Then take Turkish Delight on the Ucanbe side. I feel like the Ucanbe Turkish Delight is a little bit more purple, more cool toned. The Huda Beauty one is more red. This is the look so far. Now I'm gonna go off camera and I'm gonna add some eyeliner and mascara, and I'm also going to add a combination of the Urban Decay Razor Sharp Liner in the shade Space Cowboy and the Heavy Metal Glitter Liner in the shade Starfire, right where the cut crease is. After that I'm gonna add some lip liner and lipstick, and when I'm done with all that I will be back to tell you my final thoughts about these two palettes. So here is the completed makeup look once again. Obviously you guys have seen this already at the beginning of the video. As you can see, they turned out really similar. I just feel like the original Huda side is a bit more red. It has a bit more spice to it. Nevertheless, I actually feel like the Ucanbe side turned out better, or at least just as good. Mind you, my makeup normally looks more put together on this side. I'm quite bad with doing my eyeliner on this side, so I mess up that look most of the time. I think they look extremely similar. And to be honest with you, the last palette I'm gonna have as a dupe is really hardly available because it's been discontinued. So if you are looking for a good Desert Dusk dupe that is easily available, you can just go and order one online. Then this is it. The next one I'm gonna show you is really good, but because it's been discontinued, obviously the price went up. It costs you a lot more now to get that palette. So this is pretty much your best option unless you manage to find the next one. I think overall it's a beautiful palette. Like I said before, my only issue with it is that some of the matte shades just don't want to build up as they should. Other than that, the shimmery shades are a lot better than the original Desert Dusk palette, and considering that the original is £56, I think you are just much better off with the Ucanbe dupe. That's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, because I would love to have you here. And until next time, take care of yourself. I will see you very soon. Bye.
Find your way into this wonderland. Cross the